Uh.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
It is finally here. It is draft week for everybody in the NFL. Vegas is waiting on the Blue Stable. They're waiting on Rashad McGinnis. He couldn't be here for the show today because, got to ride first class with some prospects, got to get on American Airlines, first class, sip wine, eat peanuts and everything. He's all good to go there. We hope of a safe flight for him. All that good stuff. All right. Mason, one of our writers, is going to be there at the draft as well, representing the Blue Stable. But other than that, the Colts, it is time for draft week. You know what that means. It's draft time, guys. Whether you're listening on, whether if it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever the case may be, guys, before we get going here, we would appreciate it if you dropped a like, a comment, a subscribe to the show, guys. It really helps us out. We would really, really appreciate all the love, guys. We'd really appreciate it. As I'm going on, why don't you go ahead and do that now, okay? Anything you have to say about the show, draft prospects, or some hate about a wide receiver, which is ridiculous, you can put that down in the description below. But today is a special show for you. We got draft coverage for you guys. Joining us today with Destin Adams, of course, but he's going to come in last, Nate Atkins, been on the show before. You all know him from the spaces that he does. Nate Atkins, what's up, my guy?
How's it going, man? We're closing in, aren't we? We're almost there.
We're
just
closing in.
Trying to be in our best behavior, try and play nice so we can get through this week and survive. And it's crazy because it's like Thursday's probably nothing for the Colts, and then who knows? Maybe they'll trade into it and make it something. But either way, it still feels like a long work week.
Yeah, I think Thursday, I don't know. Thursday is going to be that game 6 for the Mavericks, so I don't even think I'm going to watch the first round because the Colts don't have a pick, and I highly doubt they're going to trade into it. But it's definitely a crazy week. But obviously, we got to get him in here now. Destin Adams, Destin, man. Since we last spoke, of course, nothing big has happened, of course. But other than that, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mean, it's draft week. It feels like this offseason's taken forever. It took the Colts what felt like 7 years to acquire Matt Ryan, then another 3 years for them to sign even a free agent. That was significant. And now it feels like it's been like 2 years since that signing, and now we're here. It's finally the draft time. We have all aged over a decade in that time frame. I wanted to highlight, I think this is Nate's first draft covering the Colts. So this will be the first draft that he's going to be able to experience Colts fans' reactions during the draft. It's a doozy, Nate.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, the last time I covered the draft, it was it was with the Lions, who those fans are much more into the draft than I've noticed Colts fans so far. Part of it is I'm coming in, the Colts don't have a first round pick, so I'm not blaming you guys.
Right.
But I'm also pointing out that when you're a team like the Lions, I mean, you live year round for the draft because that is the only idea of hope that they had at that time. So it is kind of different to see, it's kind of weird too. Like the Colts at one point were hoping that they could be a Super Bowl contender. And then 2 weeks later, it's like time to flip the page to the draft. And I don't know, it seems like people have not been as ready to go and do it yet. But I have a feeling once we get into the actual picks rolling on Thursday and Friday, the excitement will build a little bit more.
Oh, the overreactions will come.
Yeah, I was about to say, Nate, if Chris Ballard ends up taking maybe a defensive lineman rather than a wide receiver, dude, we're never going to stop hearing it. We're just not. And
Twitter's going to be a scary place.
It's going to be a scary place.
Whether Elon owns it or not, Twitter's going to be a scary place.
I still don't. $44 billion. Social media.
Hey.
Okay. Anyways, the draft is here, guys. Okay. And I just wanted to warn Nate, Colts fans can go crazy. Hell, we even had a reaction to the Dio pick last year because we weren't expecting that. We expected pass rusher, of course, with Kwity Paye. In the second round, that one, I wouldn't say reared its ugly head, but it caught some of us by surprise. I will admit that. So other than that, guys, I'm going to pass it to Destin. He's got some questions for the show. We're going to talk draft. Obviously, we put that tweet out there today. He's got the question. So, Destin, take the floor.
All right. We put out a tweet earlier today that this episode is going to be completely fan driven. Your questions are going to be all the topics that we discuss. So we're just going to keep going down and we're going to see as many as we can get into. But I want to thank anybody and everybody that submitted a question. If we weren't able to get to yours this time, we're going to do more of these in the future. So keep submitting questions and we'll get them on here, I promise. But we're going to go here to the first question from @Nick Shomish, SCHOMISCH. What do you think the likelihood is the Colts try to trade down from 42?
I think it's pretty likely. I'm not entirely.
Let's say we put a percent to it. Let's.
Okay,
Nick did
I would
percent.
say 90%. I would say 90%.
90.
I would say 90%
okay.
because if you've watched them, I mean, whether if it's Chris Ballard, Morocco Brown, Ed Dodds, they talk about the second round. You can trade up, you can trade down, you can do all sorts of things, and there's so much value in the second round where if they trade back and gain more picks, they still feel really good about who they can get if they traded 10 spots back, 8 spots back, 5 spots back. And you would think, especially considering your biggest need, there's plenty of depth in this draft where if you do trade back 10 spots, you still feel really good about who's going to be there. So I would say it's a high likely, high percentage. I'm going 90 because Chris has openly admitted, especially on this with the next pick series, that we're going to look to get more. And obviously that's going to be the prime position to do that at 42.
I'm going to go a little different there. I'm going to put a lot lower. Maybe I'm going to say maybe 45% because I think he's always open to a trade down for, all the reasons that you kind of laid out. Just the idea that, especially when you're at a secure front office like Chris Ballard feels like he is here, you can take advantage of the more desperate teams that are trying to move up and get something they need to try and win right now, especially if you charge future value. And I think if they can get picks next year, that's a better reason to do it because next year is when they're going to start to look at quarterbacks and you need draft capital to really position yourself to do that. But you got to remember, their first pick is 42 overall, and they moved up 5 spots in the second round that trade with Commanders. And I don't think they did that with the plan of just moving right back down. I think they realized that this draft is especially unique in the fact that from players ranked, let's say 20 to 45, they feel like they're pretty similar in that range. But if you drop too far below that, then all of a sudden you take yourself out of what would be that second tier of the draft, which is still sort of your home run hitting ability. So some of the guys that I've centered in that I think they can take at 42, they're almost all wide receivers. I think they present a lot more upside and immediate impact than if they drop back too far. So if they trade down, I think it's either going to be for next year's value or just a slight trade down. But I have a hard time picturing many situations where they're going to be able to do that because I just don't see teams jumping for quarterbacks this year. I just don't think that 42 pick is in a spot that's going to be the most advantageous for other teams to jump up. So I don't think they'll be just shopping it around.
Yeah, if you would have asked me this a week ago, I probably would have been leaning in the 70% range. Today, I mean, I've heard a lot. The Colts just feel that there's going to be multiple guys at 42 that they value at that pick. So if I had to pick right now, I'd probably say 35% chance they trade back. I just think they value guys at that point. I think they're going to end up taking one. So I'm going to say 35%. I love the trade back route. I've said that. I've fought for it all off season. I just think the opportunity to pick 3 times on day 2 by chance, if you move back, get an extra third from one of these later teams that maybe got a pick third even, or maybe the Chiefs who have 2 thirds and 12 picks total, and they have no reason to draft 12 guys. Like that's the type of team that you could look to trade down with. And if a good enough offer came in, I still think Ballard would do it, but I just think there's going to be good enough players at 42 where they're not going to end up moving down. So I'll stick there. Next one is going to be a little bit more of a conversation. Twitter, we've seen a little bit of debate on these two players. This one comes from @DougColts, Doug Rogers. Pickens or Watson? And then it has the googly eye emoji, and that emoji is very important in Twitter world, so we have to share that. So Pickens or Watson? So I feel like I should go first because I know I'm going to be against people here. I'm going to go George Pickens. I don't think it's close personally. But it's not as much so as I'm super low on Watson as I'm just very high on Pickens. I think Pickens is a guy who has that high floor with a high ceiling. People have thrown around that AJ Green comp for a while. And I think he just meets that. I think he offers you a lot. I think he could duel as a possible X receiver at times when Pittman might need a breather. But I also think he can play the Z type receiver. I think he's very versatile at the size, at the speed. I think he showed a lot in college, even after the injury. Tore his ACL, missed most of last season, comes back at the end, isn't able to produce much, but then goes through the draft process this year and looks like the injury's not bothering him anymore. Heck of an athlete, heck of size. I think he produces day one, and that's the reason I'm kind of driven away from Watson is I just see a lot of rawness there. High ceiling for sure. I just don't know if his ceiling is that much higher than a Pickens, where I think his floor is significantly lower. I see a guy who had drop issues in college, was against smaller talent and that still struggled to produce. Now, that North Dakota State offense is a very run-heavy offense, so that's going to limit him, of course. But then there's the situation where I really only see on tape where he runs 4 to 5 routes total. And he probably only runs 3 of those in a sense of majority. And that worries me going into the next level, that his route tree is not very extensive. I think Watson's a very good project, and I just don't know if Indy's the right place for him personally.
So this is my thing, because I'll take both of them. I mean, I'm not going to talk one down to talk the other one up. That's not how I see it. I mean, this is the draft. We're not talking about guys who are going to produce day one. And that's not, well, I would like to think that's not how Chris Ballard is operating. I'm going to take this guy because he can produce day one, but our overall trajectory or our evaluation over 10 years has this other guy as better. I don't think that's how that operates. That's just my opinion. And that's how I'm operating, because I see Christian Watson being the better wide receiver over 10 years. When they hit their prime, and obviously it matters what system you go to, the quarterback you get, whatever the case may be. If Pickens goes in, if he goes in with Sam Darnold and Christian Watson goes with Trevor Lawrence or possibly Zach Wilson, who can make a second-year jump, I think we wouldn't be surprised Christian Watson would have the better year. But I think Pickens is still a high-ceiling player. But I think what Watson can do for an offense, sorry guys, thing just moved here. What Watson can do for an offense makes his ceiling higher. And Destin is right. You know, his route tree is limited. You know, I don't think there's anybody from North Dakota State that are getting NFL jobs. I don't think there's any of those, and that's for a reason. So I'm not going to say that, you know, it's not close. I'm not going to say that at all. But for Watson, if he came here, I'd be equally as happy as if Pickens came here, because you're also going to get developed by one of the greatest wide receivers of this game. The drop issues, Reggie Wayne, some of the best hands we've ever seen. We don't think that he's going to give tips to Watson that he was given tips on, how he became a better catcher of the football. Now, with wide receivers, sometimes it is you either have hands or sometimes you don't, but that can be developed. The route tree can be developed. Same thing with Paris Campbell. What did he do at Ohio State other than just catch crossers and go take off? It's sort of the same thing, but just so much of a higher ceiling. Me personally, because the question is Pickens or Watson. Oh my gosh. I would probably say Watson because of who I think he can be over 10 years.
Yeah, I would take Watson, and I think they both have high ceilings. They both just are tremendous athletes, both at least 6'3", both run sub 4.5 with great broad jump skills. But I don't agree that George Pickens has a high floor at all. In fact, I think he has one of the lowest floors in the entire draft because you're talking about a guy who caught 5 passes last year, who played with an ACL tear, who really for 2 years has been in and out with injuries, and it's not his fault. And I don't know if those will linger, but the bigger issue to me is I haven't seen any development out of him over 2 years. Now, he came on the scene huge as a freshman at Georgia, and 700 some yards, true freshman in the SEC as a 5-star recruit, and that was great. But when I watch him, and again, we're having to nitpick these very small samples because he wasn't out there in the field much, but his routes are more raw to me than Christian Watson's were. He's a guy that can work down the field. Obviously, he's great in these contested catch situations, but I see really lack of detail when he runs just very basic intermediate routes, hitches, settling into zones. It's just not there right now. And some of that's lack of chemistry with the quarterback he hasn't worked with, but it doesn't also seem to be his focus either. And it's a guy who has his own concentration drops. And so it's just kind of hard to read there. And you hear whispers out there. There's a lot of questions about his maturity and his work ethic and where he's at. And now I wonder about that because there are moments where on film he looks like a dog out there and the way he run blocks is impressive. But there are plays, routes when it doesn't seem like the ball's coming his way that he's just kind of going through the motions. Whereas like Christian Watson, he went to North Dakota State knowing he would never be the focal point of that offense. He was there to kind of play that role and get his moments. And they found creative ways to get him the ball because they don't throw the ball much. They give him the ball in reverses. They made him a kick returner. He set a record there for kick return touchdowns in his second year there. He finished with 57 plays of at least 20 yards or more. So I think when you look at what a guy does with his opportunity, Christian Watson did a lot. Now, within that, though, you're not going to get a perfectly developed route tree or a guy who's got impeccable hands when he's playing in terrible weather. And a lot of times at North Dakota State, they'd have teams blown out by the second half. So he would only play half a game anyway, missed 3 games last year with an injury. But it's when he went to the Senior Bowl and he was just cooking defensive backs time and time again in red zone routes, one-on-one drills, team settings. That's when I think you could take him out of those settings at North Dakota State and say, this guy's got some real route running savvy. This is not a big, bulky receiver. This is a slender, he's 6'4", but he is one of the quickest off the line that you'll ever see entering the NFL. And so when I saw the way he worked and the way when I got to talk to him, the way he described route running and the things he's doing to try and learn it, that felt like a guy who's more locked in, who's dialed in. And really, when you come to this Colts team right now, it's a number 2 wide receiver role in a fairly run-heavy offense. This is not built to be a 1,000-yard, come be the X receiver type role. This is a Z receiver, win with speed and open the spacing for a Matt Ryan offense. I think he'd be a great fit in it. And guys who run as fast as he does, who kind of have their head on straight, they tend to have long careers. People think that speed is all about upside. Speed is also about floor. When you look at guys who are not perfect wide receivers, whether it's Ted Ginn or Deshaun Jackson or Darius Hayward-Bay, they have long careers because that speed you cannot go out and find other places. So a guy who's 6'4", who runs a 4.3, 640 with top 2% in the history of football in the 10 and 20-yard splits, I'm betting on Christian Watson every day, and I think he could be a superstar in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think like John Ross and Marquise Goodwin, those like track stars who still have jobs. I didn't even know Marquise Goodwin was still in the NFL, but he is. And when it comes to the George Pickens thing, and this is I wanted to touch on it after Nate spoke about it. You know, the George Pickens and the injuries and the contested catches. AJ Green, I'm not sure if I get that comparison because my comparison is Kenny Golladay because he doesn't get separation. He gets contested catches. He has jump balls all the time when his quarterback was Matthew Stafford because he doesn't get separation. Now, overall, I think George Pickens can be a better receiver than Kenny Golladay. But right now, AJ Green is a little too far-fetched because I think people forget how great AJ Green was in Cincinnati with Andy Dalton. It wasn't like Cincinnati today. So I do want to point that out there as well.
So not only that, but AJ Green at Georgia was incredible.
Yes.
I mean, that was before that college game really became the way it is in the SEC where they throw the ball around that much. He was a slam dunk top 5 pick because you had the measurables and the size and the speed and all of that. But it's a guy who'd shown it, who developed it with Matthew Stafford there and just stepped right in and was an instant number, at least a number 2, quickly a number 1 off option in Cincinnati. So George Pickens has he definitely has some great athletic traits, but I also think we get carried away saying that like everything's traits with him, where compared to Christian Watson, Watson has 5 more inches on the vertical jump. And my one concern with George Pickens is, as good as he is controlling his body and getting hands on the ball, he's never jumping up to go get it in those contested situations. He's almost kind of spinning around and catching it by his chest. And again, it's the SEC, so I give him credit. It's not like he's not going against good players, but there will be better players in the NFL. When it's Denzel Ward, when it's J.C. Jackson, if that's your style of game, I have a few more concerns about it. I think Kenny Golladay is a good comparison, but I think Kenny Golladay even has a little bit more of a vertical game than what I've seen out of George Pickens. So I think he's a really good athlete, but I don't think it's to the point of, well, if he stays on the field, he's a guaranteed blow away athlete. I still think Christian Watson's a better athlete on the field. The one thing Pickens has way above Christian Watson is he plays with that meanness, that toughness, that dog mentality. My hope with Christian Watson is if you give him a Reggie Wayne, you can start to pull that out, because he's never been in an offense that's tried to pull it out before.
So there's a couple things I want to push back on, and then we can go to the next question. First of all, I mean, the separation argument from Michael, I don't see that at all. Mostly because I think Pickens is a much quicker, much more agile receiver than a Kenny Golladay. Now, I do want to say that as crazy as this is going to sound, because Christian Watson was at North Dakota State, he probably still had better quarterback play. I mean, George Pickens, first of all, Stinson Bennett went to work at Canes the day after the national championship. And I understand that was for fun, but that's probably where he's more likely to work after his college career is over.
Whoa. Hold on, Jack. Hold on, Jack. Don't come back.
Be honest. Let me keep going. Let me keep going here.
Oh, Lord.
So then
We're
you go before,
blasphemous now.
You go before Stinson Bennett. Who won a national championship. Congratulations. Still is never going to ever touch an NFL roster. Before that, Jake Fromm, who touched an NFL roster, but still sucks. I'm just going to put that out there. Did he have decent college stats underneath and everything like that? Sure. But I mean, even if Christian Watson got to play very minimally with Trey Lance, even if it's just in practice to get better, that's better than anything George Pickens got. And that is one of the things I want to point out there. And I mean, Georgia the past couple of years has had to go run heavy because of that. I mean, they've had good running backs coming out of the program, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they've had to go run heavy because those quarterbacks are holding them back. I think Pickens' injuries are a concern to note. I just think after watching the draft cycle, I don't see any of the ACL in there still. He's battled other injuries in the past as well. To me, I just think George Pickens is a guy who comes in day one. I think he wins routes multiple different ways with his route, with his athleticism, with his hands. And I just trust George Pickens day one over Christian Watson. I understand that's a very fun argument. I really did like a lot of the things Nate said. But I just disagree on the end result, and that's okay. Next question, though, we're going to move over. This one's kind of moving away from receiver. It comes from @Robbins Lucas, one of our writers, Lucas Robbins, at the Blue Stable. On a scale of 1 to 10, how panicked would you personally be if Ballard doesn't take a receiver in round 2?
I would be from 1 to 10. I would be a 1. Like, there's good receivers in round 3 and 4, y'all. They don't have to come in and be Julio Jones, okay? I still feel good. Guys, we're talking about rookie wide receivers. Rookie wide receivers. Like, come on, man.
I guess to me, the bigger concern about it's not about can you find a good one. I think they need 2 good ones is the problem. They have 1 starter right now. So if you wait till round 3 to get one, then what are you taking at round 3 and round 4, and those are your starters? Or are you going to go sign a veteran? Maybe they can come back and get a Jarvis Landry. But right now it's like they have put so much on this roster to be able to go and contend with a team like the Titans and other AFC teams in the playoffs. They don't have it at wide receiver. So I wouldn't put it at a 1. I'd put it at least at a 5, because I think they're at least getting into a dangerous territory where are you going to have a good enough total weaponry? Not only that, what happens if Michael Pittman Jr. goes down? Is your 3rd round rookie, that's now the X receiver? Maybe. Depends on who it is. I'd rather get that guy at 42. If we're talking Pickens or Watson, I think they could step into that role conceivably. But if we're talking David Bell or Jalen Tolbert, I don't know if I feel the same way.
Oh, well, no, Jalen Tolbert now is a dog now. He's a dog.
Yeah,
I don't want to compare him to David Bell now. I got to give credit to
I was just throwing a name out there. I like Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah.
I talked with the Senior Bowl, and it's totally different style of player, but it's still the same point. It's
I think
a guy from out of South Alabama who's now going to be your Michael Pittman replacement. Hey, go burn Denzel Ward and win us a playoff game. I'm a little nervous about that.
My only pushback, and Nate, you've been in this thing. You've been around the actual league a lot longer, closer than we have, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But right now, I would like to offer this view. We can sit here and panic about, oh my gosh, what if the Colts don't go wide receiver in round 2? But that may not be Chris Ballard's biggest worry, because even though we would like to say, no, he is not on the roster today, Chris Ballard could probably have the thinking, there's a chance T.Y. Hilton, I sign him next week after the draft. There's a chance I sign him in 2 weeks. So for guys like us, we would like to say, no, you can't think like that. But guys like in the actual GM chair, they can think like that because he knows what those conversations are like. He knows what the market is looking like for TY. He knows that stuff. So I just want to offer that view.
Well, that is how Ballard's looking at it. He believes in adding players year round, and that's why he doesn't panic in the draft. But if we're talking about what our panic level is, I would look at it a little differently, though, simply because one thing I do know is they've tried receiver in free agency. It's not like they haven't tried to go sign guys. They couldn't get them because they didn't have a quarterback for the longest time. And then once they had it, the market wasn't in their favor. Prices weren't, like, so many guys were gone by the time that they circled back on that. So I think to pass another opportunity when you don't have a first round pick. So now you're talking about the first 2 rounds they get out of there in this great receiver draft and don't have a receiver. So I think it would be problematic. Again, if it's a trade back scenario and you end up having 2 third round picks that can both be receivers, I'm a little more open to that, but I definitely think they should take one in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would not lean the one direction. I'd have to see the reasoning because if there's a crazy type talent that falls at the tackle position, maybe, or maybe a crazy type player, like one of those top 5 corners fall. I mean, you can't let great talent pass because of a need, and I understand that. But looking at it in a vacuum, just to answer the question without hindsight, I'd probably be at like a 6, and that could lower because if one of those great tackles, let's say a Trevor Penning, falls into the second round somehow, and you get to pair him next to Quentin Nelson, that's going to bring my 6 down to like a 4 or a 3. But
Sign me up for that.
But that's hindsight, obviously. But the fact is, the later you take a receiver first, the more you're expecting out of a free agent, the more you're expecting out of a second rookie you draft. Because I like Ashton Doolin. I don't think he needs to be a top 3 receiver snap count come this time next year. And the moral of it is you can't expect Paris Campbell to stay healthy a full year to keep Doolin down on the depth chart. You signed T.Y. Hilton. You can't expect T.Y. Hilton to stay healthy on the depth chart. Those are things that, I mean, let's say Julio Jones is a route they go. Can we really expect Julio Jones to stay healthy right now at that route? I just don't see that. So I feel like you almost have to, because of the situation they've put themselves in, take a receiver in round 2. But I'm not a GM. Chris Ballard does not panic as much as I would, obviously. But the only reason I could see it make sense is if some crazy talent falls to justify not taking a receiver.
Well, the way that I look at this stuff that might be a little different, it's just like the way that I think a lot of teams will look at it is that free agency is where you go to fill needs, and the draft is where you go to get your long-term foundational talent. So to me, it's less about they need to take a receiver in the second round to fill that hole that they need to fill at wide receiver. To me, that's where the talent of the draft is. In the second round, it's at wide receiver, and they happen to need one. They have all the opportunity in the world for it. They need to add the talent at that spot in the second round. So to me, I just have a hard time, and I've gone through a lot of these simulators. And again, the draft is crazy, so it may throw us a curveball. But I have a hard time right here visualizing a situation where the best player available is not a wide receiver, or at least that it's not close. Again, who does? I mean, Maybe Trevor Pennings's that guy. Who knows? Maybe Derek Stingley falls all the way down there for God knows why. Don't see that happening though. So yes, there could always be a curveball, and we can amend it. But in general, if it's just we had similarly rated players and we didn't take a wide receiver, I would scratch my head a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Next question comes from James at JV3. More underrated / sneaky need, middle linebacker or defensive tackle. Which one do you think would be more likely to be a surprise possible day 2 pick? So personally, I'm going to go defensive tackle just because I've heard that they do have interest adding speed to the interior. I would still be shocked if either of them were a day 2 pick, second or third round. But I definitely think, especially because we know how successful Ballard's been on day 3, finding productive linebackers that can come in and fill needs. And the linebacker spots that they need to fill are special teamer and depth roles. So I think the linebacker for sure should be day 3. So if I had to choose between the two, I think interior defensive line would be more likely.
So, Destin, you remember we talked about this. I sent you a mock draft, and the player that fell to 42 was DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. I took him immediately. I did look at the wide receiver board. Christian Watson was gone. Pickens was gone. So I felt
I'm sure
good.
if that type of talent falls,
Yeah.
And that goes back to the last question. If those corners fall, if tackles fall, if one of those interior defensive line studs fall, it's because a run on receiver goes.
Yeah. I think because the pick for Leal for me was easy because Ballard has specifically said you need 8. You need a rotation of guys. And can you imagine a rotation of DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Dio Dangbo, and DeMarvin Leal? I easily sign up for that. Yannick Ngakoue, Kwity Paye, Nate, come on, man. Come on. Tell me if DeMarvin Leal was at 42, you'd take him as well. Come on.
Well, like Destin said, that's going to be my out, is that would happen only because all the receivers are off the board. So, yeah, in that situation, I would. And I'll be honest, I don't see any way to take a linebacker on day 2. I just don't see that. So I got to go defensive tackle because there at least is a lane there. If they were to get this, real juice at defensive tackle position, there are snaps to be had when Grover Stewart comes off the field. There's more of a long-term route there too. Both of those would definitely be surprises though. That they're definitely day 3 routes for sure though.
All right, moving down the list here. With the next pick, the new episode came out today. One of my favorite parts on Twitter when those episodes drop are some of these questions come in of people really trying to figure out who they're talking about, which we'll never actually know. But this is a fun one. So in the most recent with the next pick, and this is coming from at Colts Guy 505. His name is Jake. He's one of our writers at the Blue Stable as well. In the most recent with the next pick, they mentioned a player who was a freak, going on to say they haven't seen a player that size and that good. Which players, in your opinion, might fit this description? He also went on to mention some names that jump out to me: Watson at receiver, Nick Cross at safety, Jelani Woods at tight end.
I'm saying Jordan Davis.
So the quote was, "You've never seen a player that big be that good."
So the quote was that size and that good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis is, if you had to pick one guy in the whole draft, seems to be the one that jumps out there. I mean, he ran like a 4.78 at 340 pounds. But he's obviously not in their range. So, but that's what we don't know, is if it was some guy who was off the board. So.
Hey, what if they were talking about David Fellelli?
That's right, the 6'8" lineman.
I mean, if the quote was just, "We've never seen a guy that size," and it just stopped, maybe I would go that route. So I'm gonna go a little bit of a different route.
Actually, I had a different one for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Tariq Woolen. Cornerback. So 6'4", the fastest and most explosive cornerback in the entire draft. And you go back in time, it's hard to find a comp like that. Now that that good is the interesting thing. Is like, what are you determining on good? Because his tape doesn't show that. He's never shown that on a football field yet. But if you're talking about his actual, running these drills and testing and all of that, yeah, that guy's kind of mind blowing.
So a guy that I went was also a corner. I went Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. 6'2", 6'3" corner, very long. Also just very explosive. I believe he had the best broad jump of any corner at the combine, top 340 among the corners at the combine. And whenever I watch Zion McCollum on the outside, just seeing how big and long he is, like that's just what I always found myself saying was you just don't see a guy that big and long on the outside usually move like that. And so like just because of how I've always seen him play, that has been the direction I've gone. But the funny thing about with the next pick and going back even to Hard Knocks is they can just find quotes on anything and use it, even if it's not even in comparison. Ballard could have been watching a sixth grader in one of his kids' football programs tape and just joking with his friends. We don't know. We don't know if it has anything to do with this draft class. But if I had to guess, actually, I think Christian Watson's probably the name that's coming out of a lot because it's in that pick range of what they could do at receiver, that size. But the problem is, again, I just don't think that good on tape is going to be what has come back for a lot of the guys that we're going to see at 42.
Well, keep in mind, though, with Watson that the entire Colts scouting staff was in Mobile, and that's kind of when he really turned heads. I mean, he was a guy, he was on radars coming into that, but that's when everyone started moving him up into that second round conversation. So they saw him in person there, and you never know. But we know you don't agree, Destin.
I'm not saying he's not impressive. It's just, do I think he will come in day one and produce as a Colt? I just don't. But that doesn't mean I'd be walking around my house upset if the Colts pick Christian Watson. That's not where I'm at. But moving on down the questions here. This one comes from Nos at NSOBH21. This is actually our newest added Blue Stable staff member, our newest senior editor, Nos, sending us a question. But what implications, if any, does signing an offensive tackle like Dennis Kelly coming in on a visit with the Colts today, have on drafting an offensive tackle?
I think it's just it probably takes you out of tackle on the draft. Now, of course, that's never a given with Chris Ballard. He probably would like to add more offensive linemen, but you would probably think interior. If you brought in Dennis Kelly, you're probably thinking interior. You were already thinking interior offensive lineman. So yeah, that's where I think that lies.
It's interesting timing. Like I think they're getting started on the visit, but I doubt they would actually sign him until they see how the draft goes, because you just, like we just discussed, you never know what tackle might fall. If they end up signing him, and he would be the swing tackle, which should be a good indication that Matt Pryor is going to be the left tackle, which is currently what it looks like. But what it would do is one idea I've always thrown out there is I think they should sign Dwayne Brown to be the left tackle. If they go ahead and sign Kelly, I think it's a good indication they're probably not doing that. So he would be a swing tackle, and that would just set them up to give Matt Pryor a chance at left tackle and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they sign a guy like Dennis Kelly, it just kind of makes sense to pass on tackle early at least. And there's multiple guys that are interior tackle combos that you're going to find late day 2, early day 3 that could still be in position with the interior guys that left this offseason. So I would never say it would take them out of the market. It would just make it to where my shock value of them taking a tackle on day 2 would be tremendously higher than if they don't sign Dennis Kelly, is how I would put it. Going down the list here. How many defensive players do the Colts select in this class? Over, under 2.5?
I would say just slightly under. I think it's probably like 2.
So the first question is, do you believe they stay at 6 picks?
No.
In that situation.
They probably end up like with 10, honestly.
10? Oh my gosh.
They have
Trade back, man.
They have
Trade back.
7 picks right now.
7 picks right now.
I was about to say what, but yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah,
I'm going to say over because I think they'll end up making like 8 picks, so it'll probably be like a 5-3 split in the end. But I don't know though. I mean, I did a mock draft where I gave him a kicker, so you can end up throwing it out of whack.
Wow. Nate is joining did the Cincinnati Bengals start a trend? Did they start a trend? For who was the kicker that you took, Nate?
The guy out of Texas.
Oh Lord. Any player from Texas,
Dicker the kicker? Dicker the kicker?
I am staying away. You simply drafted him off nickname, right?
Hey, we would have a kicker comp battle from Hot Rod and Dicker the kicker.
That is NFL Network worthy. We need to get the TV crew out there and just televise that whole thing.
Sam Ellinger's the quarterback of the future, so I figured reunite him with his kicker.
All right.
Jesus. Yeah, move on.
All right.
That we're getting crazy.
I'm gonna say over. Mostly because I view them. Chris Ballard, we've joked about this in the past. Chris Ballard will draft a linebacker. If he doesn't draft a linebacker, I will send police to Chris Ballard's residence just to make sure that he's okay, because I won't believe that he made the pick if a linebacker is not drafted by the Colts. Secondly, I see them drafting at least one DB in this class in an area where I think there's good day 3 safeties and corners. And I just can't imagine them not drafting at least one defensive lineman when we have just so many spots still available on that for battles at camp. So I'm saying at least 3, and I think they end up with 8 or 9 picks. So I'm going to take the over and at least 3. I wouldn't be shocked if it's closer to 50% offense defense because Chris Ballard never cares what Twitter says. And all of us are saying offensive heavy. But that doesn't mean Chris Ballard's going to go offensive heavy. He's going to find a way to have 9 picks and take 5 defensive players just to give Twitter the middle finger. Give me
more defense, man. But I really want a corner out of this class. I would really like a corner.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they don't take a corner. I mean, to me, that's a big reason why you signed Stephon Gilmore, because you kind of get the pipelines rolling. And also, if they're going to transition to Gus Bradley's defense, which is more bump and run, they need length there, and they don't really have anything in the pipelines that represents length.
Nate, trade up for Sauce.
Yeah, that sounds realistic. You only have to get to like number 3. So
yeah,
as long as he doesn't go to Houston, just keep him out of the AFC South.
Yeah, keep him out of the AFC South.
My favorite player in this draft. Let's just keep him out.
Keep him away from Jacksonville.
Next question here comes from Daryl Ingram. What position makes Colts Nation rage the most if Ballard picks them? So it doesn't say specifically, but I'm going to say at pick 42 because, I mean, any position could get drafted at any point. So what position would make us the most mad if picked at 42? And let's not be the guys that try to say kicker or punter at 42 and the obvious stuff. So anything else?
So me personally, I'm going to say quarterback. I'll say quarterback. If he took Desmond Ridder or Sam Howell, I'm starting to believe Matt Carroll won't even touch the second round. Hell, Desmond Ridder might not even touch the second round either. But if there was like Carson Strong, basically a quarterback, because Colts fans have now, like me personally, I think it should still be on the table. If you feel strongly about your guy, take him. That's still the most important position in football. But I do see Colts getting so crazy if they took a quarterback because, oh my gosh, we have real needs. We have Matt Ryan. Why didn't you go tackle? Why didn't you go tight end? Why didn't you go wide receiver? I mean, they would the pitchforks would be coming to West 56 if they took a quarterback.
Well, the scenario I'm thinking about is if they trade into the end of the first and take a quarterback, like the Packers did with Jordan Love.
Fifth year
option. There you go.
That, like, if you just watch them do that, and then they announce that they're drafting Sam Howell and he's not going to play for 2 years, and then they get bounced because they don't have any receivers in the playoffs, it would feel just like the Green Bay Packers. So
Sam Howell. Let's just stop saying his name.
I do not want to be the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, so I think quarterback would set people off pretty badly, unless by chance there's some way that quarterback is Malik Willis, and you can explain that he really needs time, and it's at least a chance at a superstar player. But if it's some quarterback that just feels like a dude in this class, which is how Sam Howell has always felt to me, I can imagine that not going over too well.
I
probably
wouldn't
go over well either with Matt Ryan.
I just wouldn't be mad if they took a guy they felt strongly about. I know there's some media guys out there in Indy that say Chris Ballard is scared to draft a quarterback. But if he just took one, Ritter, Howell, Strong, whatever the kid, throw a name out there, if he took one in the second round, I'd be happy because you did your due diligence. You said this guy can be the guy because you're drafting him in the second round. It's not Jacob Eason in the fourth. You're drafting a guy.
Didn't you just say quarterback was the spot you'd be the most mad if they drafted?
No, I'd say that the fan base would be the most mad.
Okay.
The fan base would be I would be happy with it. Personally.
So I don't know if I can use the word happy. So, I mean, I'm a big Matt Corral guy. I think he has superstar potential as well as with Malik Willis personally on him. If he was so those two guys being there makes it to where I can't say quarterback for me. Personally, if I had to pick any position that I'd be like, what just happened? Tight end, because I just don't think any of those guys I would want to draft in round 2. I think there's so many guys that would take in round 3s, 4, 5 for tight ends in this class. I wouldn't want to take any of them at 42. And I like Trey McBride a lot. Couldn't take him at 42 personally. The other one would be linebacker, again, because I just don't see the need, first of all. And second of all, Bauer just has so much success drafting linebackers. I will agree, fan-wise, if the Colts took a quarterback, there will be all types of emotion. And people are going to want to burn West 56th Street to the ground. So let's just hope it doesn't happen, I guess.
Hey, I'll take Chattanooga. I'll take him. Give me more defense. Come on, give me more.
Can you imagine if they drafted a running back at 42?
Oh my god!
I was gonna say that was my number 2. So
that's a good one too.
And then Ballard comes out and he says, I just felt like we just want to be a team that runs the ball and plays good defense. We don't feel like
three running back backfield.
Nate, triple option their ass. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, the Naeem Hines slot truthers would be probably happy in that moment. They're like, oh, he's going. Hines is a slot receiver now.
I tell you, Ballard thought Hines didn't get the ball enough in this offense. Imagine what he'll feel about the 42nd pick at running back. I don't think he's taking Jonathan Taylor off the field to give the rookie some run.
And then it'll be Frank Reich's fault.
Right.
We don't have to get into that right now. Last question here comes from another writer from the Blue Stable, at Bench Sebastian Bench, our UK rep for the Blue Stable. Who could be this year's Fisher, a veteran who fills a key need that isn't addressed until post-draft?
I don't want anyone to be our Fisher. I don't want anyone to be the Fisher.
Oh, let's take his play out of the picture. Just saying a free agent that starts for us post the draft.
TY, I'll say that. I don't think Chris Ballard is going with anyone else in terms of vets, and like you said, Destin,
out answer.
Like Destin, what other starting jobs are out there? What tight end is going to come in and overtake Mo Ali Cox? What tackle is going to come in? Ballard isn't spending money on Dwayne Brown. So what tackle is going to come in and overtake Matt Pryor, the Matt Pryor, who is going to prove to be our future left tackle? Who else is there, Destin? Come on, man. You can't hold my feet to the fire for that.
I just said it was boring. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's boring.
I'll give you the same position, but a different player. I'll go Jarvis Landry. I know he's had interest here, and it gets to a point where I know he wants to stay with the Browns. That's where his family is. And he loves the idea of playing with Deshaun Watson. He may get lowballed forever there, or they may just decide that he's too low on the priority list, and the Colts could have the best offer left out there for him. And he sees a situation where they get a guy in the draft who's the Z receiver. He has a slot only position for him to play with Matt Ryan. Yeah.
Imagine begging, wanting to stay in Cleveland of all places. That's crazy.
You know where I'm from?
Where?
Exactly there.
Dude.
So,
Wow.
be careful
If
before I start.
the Browns weren't there, then I'd give you props. But
Oh, based on them, I got you.
yeah,
Nate, and LeBron, you know, big Cleveland icons.
there you go.
I'm trying to go
A
through
bar is
positions.
named after him.
I'm trying to just go through positions here of players that I think could go in and start. I mean, I think that
Game changer Ryan Griffin. There you go.
I mean, Jarvis Landry is the name that comes out to me as well. Because again, if Ty is back, I mean he's back, but I don't. I love Ty, man, Ring of Honor guy. I wish he would just retire, and I wouldn't have to like fight this because I just don't see any production coming back by signing T.Y. Hilton. I see production signing Jarvis Landry. So yeah, if I had to pick a veteran who fills a starting role, it's probably Jarvis Landry. That question would probably be one better to try to break down after the draft's over, looking at what options are available. Because there's probably linebackers that could compete with Zaire Franklin on the market right now. There are tight ends that you could make the argument to come in and play a different role of tight end than what Mo Alley Cox and Granson are going to play that are on the market. So it's just a lot of different options. I'll say Jarvis Landry, and I'll also make a plea that T.Y. Hilton retires.
Oh my gosh, man. Other than that, I can't think of anyone else. I mean, you already got Gilmore. Every defensive starting job is taken on the defense. So offensively,
the other one would be Dwayne Brown. You know, it would come down to willingness. But to me, I've always thought it was a great fit because Dwayne Brown is basically the same age as Matt Ryan, and they're two of the only players left in football at that age. And at this stage in his life, I imagine what has to rank fairly high for him is a nice situation where he has a chance to win, because playing offensive line at the age of 37 isn't exactly a joyous job anymore. So it's kind of like how the Rams sold Andrew Whitworth at the same age. I'm coming there, playing more of a simplified left tackle role and trying to win a title with Sean McVay. I think you could sell him on the same idea, give him a 2-year deal to play out the same amount of time as Matt Ryan and do your best to win a Super Bowl with him. Block for Jonathan Taylor, work downhill, play next to Quentin Nelson. All those things can get him to sign potentially for less money than maybe you think you'd otherwise get him for. Same kind of thing they did with Rodney McLeod, getting him for a lot cheaper than people thought because the situation's nice for a veteran at that stage of his life. So that's what I think they should go do. I don't think they will do that.
If the Rams didn't pay Joey Noteboom as much as they did to replace Whitworth after he retired, I really felt like Dwayne Brown was going to end up a Ram. It just made a lot of sense after I heard Whitworth's retirement. I just thought that would be where he slid in. Bobby Wagner.
Joe got 3 years, $40 million, right?
Something in that ballpark. There's been a lot of free agency deals.
It was a lot of money. It was a lot of money.
So, I mean, that's what kind of holds it up now is I just don't know if Dwayne – I just felt like the Rams made a lot of sense for him. If Dwayne Brown was going to be a Colt, I just feel like it would have happened already, I guess is like what I'm at. I think he could definitely come in and start right away.
Yeah.
I think the Colts truly want to see if Matt Pryor is a starting caliber tackle. I heard that they wanted to sign him to a multi-year deal this offseason, and his agent pushed back and it being a 1-year deal, which, I mean, for Pryor's agent, that you're doing what you're supposed to do. He knows that if he goes out and plays starting caliber level at tackle, that contract is going to be significantly more. But guys, that is our fan section question here for the draft. The draft is Thursday at 8 p.m. We're all super excited to watch. We're all super excited to react. We're probably going to do a spaces after each night of the draft. We'll probably try to get some work in after each pick, even to react. Maybe you'll see Nate Atkins, Mr. Spaces, in one of those. Who knows? But really appreciate all the questions being asked. Super pumped for the draft. Let's just all hope it's a receiver so we don't have to see Twitter's reaction. Amen?
Yes, let's go receiver.
And now, running back, I'm just here to see the world burn.
If they take a running back, you might as well trade Michael Pittman Jr. because you better go triple option at that point.
All I know is if we draft a running back, I'll even past 42. In the top 4 rounds, if we take a running back, I'm clipping Nate Atkins running back take here.
Wow.
Posting it everywhere.
Hey, does Nate know a little something we don't?
I'm sure.
Right.
That's breaking insight. They're considering running back at 42.
Right. Inside and breaking news, an exclusive interview with Nate Atkins of the Indy Star. He just got off the phone with Chris Ballard. Right.
Sending it to ESPN now.
There we go.
Super thankful for Nate coming on, answering fans' questions. Super pumped for the draft. Nate, where are you watching the draft this year?
I'll be at the Colts facility. So probably nothing happening on Thursday, but then Friday, Saturday, we'll talk to the scouts and Ballard and Irsay and whoever else shows up. Should be fun.
You heard it here first. The Colts are trading into the first round via Nate Atkins.
And taking a running back.
Nate, is Chris Ballard talking night one?
Only if they make a pick. So
okay.
We'll see. Probably
Nate,
standby.
Nate, real quick, because Destin doesn't want to do it. Rashad doesn't want to do it, but while you're there, can you give me some support and watch the Mavs game for me and root with me?
On Thursday night?
Yeah, Thursday night, man. You got time. You got time. You got it.
I don't know. We'll see. You need to improve your description of Cleveland first, and then maybe I'll come around.
Okay. Hey, they have great bars. I'll say that.
I like it.
There we go.
Well, all right, everybody. Super thankful for Nate again coming on. Watch the draft. Please keep your takes to a minimum. Do not overreact. There's 3 days of the draft, 3 days to get solid players, and the Colts always find a way to get at least one instant impact rookie. So just wait, be patient. It's going to be fun. It's finally here. Thank you for all your support. And as always, go Colts.